Who would have thought that the darkest hours of Georgian London, cloaked in gas lights flicker and the thick mist of the Thames, would host such a peculiar quest? Tonight, you wander through cobbled streets slick with rain, feeling the city's pulse slow as it succumbs to night. But for you, the chase is different. Sleep eludes you, a ghost slipping through fingers no matter how tightly you grasp. Around you, others, shopkeepers, nobles, servants, are equally restless. Each has their own secret hope, their own curious cure to conquer the endless yawning dark. You trudge past shuttered windows where candlelight casts eerie shadows and muffled whispers hint at desperate remedies. The smell of burning tallow mingles with the pungent aroma of horse dung and the faint tang of tobacco. A woman passes, clutching a bundle of lavender. A child whimpers somewhere nearby. You know you're not alone in this sleepless vigil. In fact, you probably won't survive this night without trying something strange, something barely understood, but promising the sweetest escape: oblivion. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop your location and local time in the comments, because wherever you are, someone, somewhere, is also wrestling the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself at the edge of a narrow street, leaning against a brick wall damp with dew. The night air carries whispers of remedies passed down by apothecaries and charlatans alike. Some promise immediate relief, others slow release, but all share one goal: to capture sleep's fleeting shadow. In Georgian England, insomnia is no mere nuisance. It's a sign of unrest in the body and soul, a nightly thief robbing you of vitality and peace. Doctors still debate whether sleeplessness is caused more by physical ailments or by the swirling anxieties of a rapidly changing world. You feel that uncertainty pulse beneath the surface of your own restless limbs. Nearby, a dimly lit shop window displays a curious array of bottles and powders. Apothecaries are the pharmacists of their day, mixing ingredients as mysterious as the ailments they claim to cure. Among these is laudanum, a dark, syrupy potion made from opium poppies that promises to usher you into dreamland with gentle but powerful ease. It's the era's most coveted sleep aid, though you know better than to trust it completely. Laudanum can soothe your nerves, yes, but it also lulls many into dangerous dependence. Historians still argue whether laudanum prolonged life by easing pain or quietly shortened it by addiction. Despite that, you find yourself drawn to it, to the notion of surrendering control and slipping into that sweet escape: oblivion. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop your location and local time in the comments, because wherever you are, someone, somewhere, is also wrestling the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself at the edge of a narrow street, leaning against a brick wall damp with dew. The night air carries whispers of remedies passed down by apothecaries and charlatans alike. Some promise immediate relief, others slow release, but all share one goal: to capture sleep's fleeting shadow. In Georgian England, insomnia is no mere nuisance. It's a sign of unrest in the body and soul, a nightly thief robbing you of vitality and peace. Doctors still debate whether sleeplessness is caused more by physical ailments or by the swirling anxieties of a... The apothecary's laudanum still rests in your pocket like a secret talisman as you trudge through the foggy streets, the cold seeping through your threadbare coat. Tonight, you consider that tiny vial, not just a medicine, but a promise. The promise of sleep, the promise of escape. In Georgian England, laudanum isn't just popular. It's practically a miracle in a bottle, a dark nectar brewed from the opium poppy's potent juice mixed with alcohol. A few drops on your tongue, and the world softens. The endless chatter of your mind begins to hush, and finally, the elusive embrace of dreams may come. But there's a catch, of course. You've heard the whispers in the taverns and streets. Laudanum can steal your breath if taken too freely. Some have fallen into an abyss deeper than mere sleeplessness. Addiction, the slow unraveling of body and mind. Still, many swear by it, including celebrated poets and society's most exhausted aristocrats. Historians still argue whether laudanum prolonged the creative lives of these individuals or quietly shortened them behind closed doors. You swallow a cautious drop, tasting the bitterness that lingers like a secret. Your vision blurs just slightly, edges softening, and the night's sharp angles begin to round off. You lean back against a wooden fence, waiting, hoping for that gentle drift toward oblivion. Across the street, a dim candlelight flickers through a curtained window, and you imagine the apothecary's other curious concoctions: snail syrup, a remedy you never quite understand. It's made by simmering snails down into a thick, sticky liquid, believed to cool the heated blood and calm the restless mind. The idea seems absurd. Who would willingly sip the essence of a slug? But desperation makes strange bedfellows. Some patients swear by its effects, claiming it eases the ache in their bones and quiets the nightly storms inside their heads. As you walk on, the scent of lavender drifts from an open window. You recall the odd custom among the wealthy of perfuming their powdered wigs with lavender or rosemary to induce calm. Some noblemen believed the fragrant powder helped keep nightmares at bay. The idea of a sleep scented by flowers feels almost luxurious compared to the grime and clatter of the city's streets. Yet, even with such rituals, many nobles still struggle with their restless nights. Feathers and fine linen can only do so much when the mind races. You pass a curious gathering of gentlemen discussing the latest medical oddity, the electric bath. No, not a bath with water. Rather, a contraption designed to deliver gentle electric shocks to the body. Proponents claim it balances the nervous system, shaking free the cobwebs of insomnia and even curing impotence and melancholia. You wonder if the shocks would wake you up more than send you to sleep, but the idea spreads like wildfire in medical circles. It's funny, really. You imagine a frazzled Georgian gentleman writhing beneath a buzzing contraption, hoping that a zap or two might hush his overactive mind. Historians still argue whether these early experiments with electricity truly helped patients or merely frightened them further. At the corner, you hear a muffled moan, perhaps from a neighbor disturbed by the constant clatter of chamber pots, those cracked, smelly vessels people use when nature calls during the night. Privacy and peace are luxuries far from guaranteed. You think about how the thin walls of Georgian homes amplify every cough, creak, and groan, turning sleep into an endless battle against sound and discomfort. Your eyes grow heavier, but your feet keep moving, as if the streets themselves urge you onward. Somewhere ahead, a featherbed waits, a soft haven stuffed with down, but also infested with bedbugs and layered with burning amber resin to keep pests at bay. You smile to yourself, imagining the irony.
The candles flicker in your chamber cast long shadows on peeling wallpaper as you prepare your latest hopeful remedy, a warm cup of snail syrup. Yes, snail syrup. A curious concoction that sounds more like a potion brewed in a witch's hut than a doctor's prescription. Yet here you are, spoon poised, ready to sip this thick, sticky liquid believed to cool the restless blood and calm the nerves. You recall the apothecary's words as he handed you the vial. It's an old remedy, favored by those who find laudanum too strong. The idea of slurping snail essence may cause a wrinkle of your nose, but desperate times call for desperate measures. There's something oddly comforting about the gentle warmth spreading down your throat, even if it tastes like the damp cellar where those slimy creatures once crawled. The belief behind snail syrup comes from the humoral theory still dominant in Georgian medicine. The body, they say, balances 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. When these are out of harmony, illness and sleeplessness follow. Snail syrup, thought to be cooling, helps settle the overheated blood that churns your restless mind. Historians still argue whether these humors were ever more than metaphors for the body's mysteries, or if they offered a functional framework that eased patients through placebo and ritual. Your fingers tremble as you set down the cup, hoping this remedy will soothe your buzzing thoughts. But your eyes remain wide, ears attuned to the house creaking and the occasional hoot of a night owl beyond the window. The world is so quiet, it almost hurts. Every breath, every tick of the clock loud enough to fill the room. You think about the doctors who advise patients to avoid stimulants like coffee and tea, favoring warm milk instead. Milk warmed gently with a pinch of nutmeg or cinnamon, spices thought to help lull the mind. Milk, in its creamy simplicity, offers a brief return to childhood's comfort, a time before worries crawled under your skin like the creeping chill of the night. Still, no matter how many remedies you try, your mind wanders like a restless spirit. You remember stories of the wealthy who adorned their bedrooms with fragrant herbs, burning lavender and rosemary to create an atmosphere conducive to sleep. Some even dabbed powdered lavender behind their ears or tucked sprigs beneath their pillows. It's a practice that feels more ritual than medicine, and yet the scent lingers in your nostrils long after the candles burn low. Meanwhile, the less fortunate often contend with beds stuffed with goose down and feathers, comfort mixed with inevitable infestation. Bedbugs and fleas turn the promise of rest into a nightly torment, making sleep a fleeting, stolen pleasure. Burning amber resin was used to mask these pests with a smoky perfume, but historians still argue whether these scents truly deterred bedbugs or merely masked the stench. Outside, the muffled sounds of the city continue, the clatter of chamber pots, the distant barking of dogs, and the occasional wail from a child unsettled by bad dreams or hunger. The night is alive with unrest, and your own body seems to pulse in time with it. In these restless hours, you can't help but feel connected to all those who lie awake alongside you, bound by the shared misery of insomnia and the strange hope that the next remedy, however weird, however bitter, will finally bring peace. You pace in your chamber, the thick scent of lavender from your powdered wig lingering like a ghost's embrace. The Georgian elite have a peculiar relationship with their hairpieces. Not just fashion statements, but delicate devices meant to soothe the restless mind. Lavender and rosemary powders dust these wigs, believed to calm the wearer's nerves and ward off the foul smells of crowded city life. You try to inhale deeply, hoping the scent will quell the whirlwind of thoughts that keep you awake. Yet, the wigs themselves come with their own problems. The weight and heat trap sweat and sometimes foster a host of unwanted guests, lice, fleas, and other tiny tormentors. In an era before modern hygiene, you wonder if the cure might sometimes be worse than the ailment. Historians still argue whether the extravagant use of powders was an effective comfort or simply a fashionable distraction from deeper worries. You shift uncomfortably, remembering tales of noblemen who took their insomnia to spas filled with warm mineral waters. These baths promised to draw out the day's tensions and soothe frazzled nerves. But instead of calming the mind, some found the experience unsettling. Electricity in the water, subtle shocks designed to stimulate the nerves and awaken the body's natural healing powers. The shock treatment was cutting-edge medicine, touted to cure everything from sleeplessness to impotence. You can't help but chuckle at the thought of a drowsy gentleman jolted awake by a buzzing current, wondering if this was more likely to cause a heart attack than a good night's sleep. In your mind's eye, you picture the scene. A stately drawing room, softly glowing by candlelight, where anxious patients recline, awaiting the strange hum of electric devices. The physicians, clad in starched coats, adjust wires and electrodes, confident in their new scientific marvels. Yet the truth is less certain. Many patients found the electric treatments too startling or ineffective, and the medical community remains divided on their true benefits. Back in your chamber, you nestle into your feather bed, a cocoon of soft down, but also a battlefield of bugs and irritants. These beds are prized possessions, symbols of wealth and comfort, yet they harbor tiny enemies. Bedbugs in particular were the notorious nighttime tormentors, feasting silently and leaving itchy marks that added insult to the injury of sleepless nights. To fight them, families burned aromatic resins like amber and frankincense nearby, filling rooms with thick smoke. The effectiveness of these fragrant fires is still debated, though the smoke certainly made the air smell more pleasant than the damp close quarters. You think about the contrasts of Georgian sleep, luxury tinged with discomfort, science mixed with superstition. The quest for rest is fraught with paradox, as remedies designed to calm often provoke more anxiety. Yet despite the trials, the hope of sleep drives every effort, no matter how strange or extravagant. In your mind's eye, you picture the scene, a stately drawing room, softly glowing by candlelight, where anxious patients recline, awaiting the strange hum of electric devices. The physicians, clad in starched coats, adjust wires and electrodes, confident in their new scientific marvels. Yet, the truth is less certain. Many patients found the electric treatments too startling or ineffective, and the medical community remains divided on their true benefits. Back in your chamber, you nestle into your feather bed, a cocoon of soft down, but also a battlefield of bugs and irritants. These beds are prized possessions, symbols of wealth and comfort, yet they harbor tiny enemies. Bedbugs in particular were the notorious nighttime tormentors, feasting silently and leaving itchy marks that added insult to the injury of sleepless nights. To fight them, families burned aromatic resins like amber and frankincense nearby, filling rooms with thick smoke. The effectiveness of these fragrant fires is still debated, though the smoke certainly made the air smell more pleasant than the damp close quarters. You think about the contrasts of Georgian sleep, luxury tinged with discomfort, science mixed with superstition. The quest for rest is fraught with paradox, as remedies designed to calm often provoke more anxiety. Yet, despite the trials, the hope of sleep drives every effort, no matter how strange or extravagant. Outside, the city hums with life. Distant laughter, a stray dog's bark, the muted toll of a church bell. You close your eyes briefly, willing the lavender and the warmth to pull you toward dreams. But the night is long, and your mind is not so easily tamed.
The gas lamps flicker as you wander deeper into the city's veins, the streets now quieter but no less restless. Insomnia in Georgian England is an epidemic, a shared burden from paupers to princes. You realize that sleep isn't simply elusive, it's a prize that requires cunning strategies and sometimes, quite literally, sacrifice. You recall the word you overheard at a tavern the other night, hypnotics. It's a term floating just beyond your grasp, referring to substances and techniques meant to lull the mind into sleep's embrace. Among these, you learn of a curious sleep aid called Black Draught, a bitter potion made from herbs and minerals, often containing senna, which was known to induce both sleep and, well, other bodily expulsions. The irony isn't lost on you, how often relief came with an embarrassing price. But the promise of sleep, that sweet oblivion, was worth any discomfort. You also consider the role of music surprisingly integral in some circles. Gentle lullabies or soft harpsichord melodies were believed to coax even the most stubborn minds toward rest. Aristocrats might employ a personal musician to play soothing tunes, a luxury the average citizen could only dream of. You imagine the tender notes floating through curtained rooms, a delicate balm for frayed nerves. Yet, the city itself rarely cooperates. Outside, the clatter of horse-drawn carts, the clang of blacksmiths, and the ever-present hum of human activity create a relentless soundtrack. You think back to the stories of night watchmen, those men tasked with patrolling the streets, their wooden staffs clacking against the cobblestones. Their calls, past 1 o'clock or all's well, punctuate the night, a constant reminder of the city's restless heartbeat. Sleep in Georgian England is a battle against noise and discomfort, but also against the mind's own tendencies to spiral. You remember reading that physicians sometimes recommended sleep masks fashioned from velvet or silk to block out light, though they were rare and expensive. The idea of closing your eyes to the world in such a deliberate way feels both alien and appealing. You also think about the infamous nightmare pillow, stuffed with herbs thought to ward off bad dreams, mugwort, wormwood, and hops. You imagine pressing your face against one, inhaling the pungent, slightly bitter aroma, and hoping it would shield you from the shadows that creep into your dreams. Historians still argue whether these pillows truly affected sleep or were merely a comforting superstition. And what of those who turned to religion? Midnight prayers and whispered psalms offered solace for some, a spiritual balm when all else failed. Churches would sometimes hold all-night vigils, hoping that divine intervention might bring rest. You think about the quiet candlelight in those stone sanctuaries and the way soft chanting might ease the restless soul. You realize that across social classes and districts, everyone shares the same desperate hope, that this night might finally be the one where sleep arrives unbidden and unbroken. And as you move through the shadowy streets, you feel the weight of their collective longing pressing down like the fog itself. You step inside a dimly lit apothecary shop, the scent of dried herbs and pungent tinctures wrapping around you like a warm, strange blanket. This place is the heart of Georgian insomnia remedies, a cabinet of curiosities filled with bottles labeled in looping script, powders ground from roots and minerals, and mysterious jars of amber liquids. You run your fingers along the wooden shelves, feeling the roughness of glass and wood, each vial a potential key to unlocking sleep's elusive door. Among these is the notorious mummy powder, a strange and somewhat macabre remedy made from ground-up Egyptian mummies. Yes, actual mummies, ancient dried bodies brought to England from archaeological digs and ground into powder for use in medicine. It's believed that the substance had powerful healing properties, including calming the nerves and soothing insomnia.
You shudder at the thought, wondering how the smell of ancient dust mingled with the herbs and flowers of the shop. Historians still argue whether mummy powder's fame was based more on mystique and exoticism than any real medicinal effect. You pick up a small jar of dragon's blood resin, a bright red substance harvested from the sap of certain tropical trees. This resin was burned like incense to cleanse the air and ward off evil spirits thought to disturb sleep. The idea of sleep being disrupted by unseen forces feels almost comforting. If you can blame bad dreams on ghosts, you might find some measure of control. The shopkeeper once mentioned that burning dragon's blood was particularly popular among the wealthy, a luxury only affordable to those who could pay for imported goods. Your eyes drift to a dusty shelf lined with poppy heads, whole dried seed pods from the opium poppy. Apothecaries prized these for brewing laudanum and other sleep-inducing tinctures, but the dangers were well known. Too much and you might never wake. Too little and you'd lie awake, restless and agitated. The fine line between remedy and poison is thin indeed. It makes you wonder how many sleepless nights were followed by tragic mornings. Nearby, a bundle of dried hops hangs from a hook, used not only for brewing beer, but also in pillows and potions meant to bring peaceful sleep. You imagine the gentle bitterness of hops mingling with warm milk before bedtime, a calming ritual whispered from one generation to the next. Even today, some swear by a good cup of warm hop tea to unwind. You wonder about the people who came here, nervous wives seeking relief, overworked laborers desperate for rest, anxious children's parents buying powders and potions in hopes of sweet dreams. The apothecary shop was a crossroads of desperation and hope, science and superstition intertwined. As you leave, the door creaks behind you, and the cool night air washes over you, carrying the scent of burning amber and distant rain. You tuck a small vial of lavender oil into your pocket, a final hope against the dark. Sleep may still be a distant dream, but for tonight, you carry a little comfort with you.
You find yourself in a softly lit drawing room where a circle of gentlemen and ladies sit in plush chairs, sipping chamomile-infused wine and discussing the latest discoveries in natural philosophy. This is the Georgian era's early attempt at sleep science, where reason and observation begin to challenge centuries of superstition. The conversation drifts to the curious case of animal magnetism, a practice developed by Franz Mesmer, who claimed to use invisible forces to heal ailments, including insomnia. You lean in as the group debates whether mesmerism is genuine science or mere trickery. Some swear by its calming powers, describing a trance-like state induced by gentle hand movements and soothing voices. Others dismiss it as theatrical nonsense, a fashionable fad that preyed on the vulnerable. Historians still argue whether mesmerism's influence helped lay the groundwork for modern hypnosis or simply distracted from more effective remedies. As the night deepens, you observe the rise of the sleeping chair, a curious piece of furniture designed to recline the sitter just enough to encourage dozing without fully lying down. The idea was to prevent the dangers of suffocating or flatting associated with lying too flat for prolonged periods. It's a stark reminder of the era's medical anxieties, where even posture was scrutinized in the quest for rest. In this drawing room, you also notice the faint smell of ambergris, a rare and exotic substance collected from sperm whales. It was often used in perfumes and sometimes burned as incense to create an atmosphere conducive to sleep. The scent is oddly sweet, almost marine, and lingers like a secret promise of calm. Only the wealthiest could afford such luxuries, underscoring the sharp divide between classes even in the battle against insomnia. You recall tales of aristocrats who traveled to spas in Bath or Cheltenham, seeking the healing properties of mineral waters. These resorts combined medical treatment with social indulgence, baths, massages, gentle exercise, and quiet afternoons reading by the fire.
Some visitors swore they returned home refreshed and sleep-ready, while others found the bustle of spa life too stimulating. The common folk, meanwhile, had their own rituals. You think of bedtime ale, a weak beer brewed to soothe the stomach and calm the nerves. It's a humble contrast to the elaborate therapies of the upper classes, but one no less important in its own way. As you settle deeper into the evening stories, you feel the mingling of old beliefs and new ideas, each vying to unlock the secrets of sleep. The quest continues, carried on by dreamers, skeptics, and everyone in between.
You find yourself in the dim glow of a Georgian bedroom, where a curious invention sits by the bedside, the infamous chamber pot with lid, an essential part of nightly routines. While it may not sound glamorous, it's a lifeline for those struggling with the simple act of relieving themselves in the dark without waking the entire household. The chamber pot, often ornately decorated for the wealthier classes, was a humble necessity amid sleepless nights. As you reach to lift the lid, you remember that the hygiene standards of the time were, well, somewhat lacking by modern measures. The chamber pot was typically emptied only in the morning, and the smell could linger, mixing unpleasantly with the thick curtains and heavy drapes meant to keep drafts out. In some households, attendants would quickly remove and clean these vessels, but in many, the odors and risks of infection were ever present. Historians still argue whether the Georgian obsession with curtains and heavy bedding was a comfort or a contributor to poor indoor air quality and restless sleep. You think about the nighttime rituals of the era's elite. The nightcap, a small drink taken just before bed, ranging from fortified wine to brandy, meant to dull the senses and coax the body into rest. While this practice might ease you into a light slumber, overindulgence often led to nightmares or fitful sleep. The line between help and hindrance was perilously thin. Nearby, you spot a stack of feather beds, luxurious yet infamous for harboring pests like fleas and bedbugs. Families regularly used brushes and combs to try to dislodge these unwelcome visitors, but the creatures were persistent. You imagine the desperate scratching in the dark, a shared suffering across social classes. Burning aromatic resins like amber and frankincense was believed to repel such pests, though the smoke was sometimes so thick it made breathing difficult. In quieter moments, some turned to warm baths infused with herbs like lavender and rosemary. These baths, however, could be a double-edged sword. While intended to relax, cold drafts upon leaving the bath could cause chills and prolong restlessness. You picture a noblewoman wrapped hastily in furs, shivering despite the heavy gown, and wonder how many sleepless nights were worsened by such uncomfortable rituals. Sleep, it seems, was not just about rest, but survival, an ongoing negotiation with the body, environment, and the unseen forces believed to disturb slumber. You feel a creeping sense of empathy for those who face these nightly trials, and a growing appreciation for the simple, untroubled sleep we often take for granted. Outside the window, the city is quieting, but you know the struggle for sleep goes on, whispered in dreams and muttered in frustration through the night. You wake, or rather you try to wake, feeling the weight of the restless night clinging to your bones. The candle guttered low beside your bed, its soft flicker casting dancing shadows on the wallpaper, faded by time and soot. You realize that morning, in Georgian England, was often just the brief pause before the night's battle with insomnia resumed. The day's activities, tea, social visits, and long walks, offered distractions but rarely relief from the underlying tension of sleeplessness. You remember that for many, coffee houses provided a kind of sanctuary. These bustling centers of conversation and information were not just about caffeine. They offered a structured pause, a moment to collect one's thoughts. The stimulant effect of coffee, though, was a double-edged sword, and some feared it worsened nighttime restlessness. Historians still argue whether the rise of coffee culture contributed more to productivity or to the epidemic of sleeplessness sweeping through cities.
In wealthier homes, the morning routine often began with a coffee ceremony, a carefully orchestrated ritual involving fine china, hot water, and sugar cubes. The ceremony was as much about social standing as about the drink itself. You imagine the delicate clinking of porcelain and the soft murmur of polite conversation, a stark contrast to the turmoil beneath the surface. You think about the diet of the time, which was surprisingly heavy on meat and rich pastries, often eaten late into the evening. Doctors frequently warned that heavy meals before bedtime would disturb sleep, but habits were hard to break. You picture a lavish Georgian supper, candlelight reflecting off crystal glasses filled with port, the laughter and chatter punctuated by the clink of silverware. Perhaps it was no wonder that so many found their nights restless. Mid-morning, some sought refuge in nap chairs, specially designed seats that allowed a brief doze without fully reclining. The nap was considered a luxury, often reserved for the infirm or the elderly, but those who indulged swore by its restorative powers. You recall that naps were sometimes frowned upon as signs of laziness, revealing the era's complicated relationship with rest and productivity. In the middle class and poorer districts, the day was less forgiving. Laborers and servants often worked long hours with little time for rest. Their nights were haunted by exhaustion, but sleep came fitfully, if at all, disturbed by noise, cold, and anxiety. You imagine cramped rooms shared by families, the muffled sounds of neighbors, and the distant clatter of the market beginning to stir. As the morning light strengthens, you realize that the quest for sleep is not just a nighttime struggle, but a cycle entwined with daily life, one that shapes habits, rituals, and even social interactions. The more you learn, the clearer it becomes that sleep, or the lack of it, is woven deeply into the fabric of Georgian England. You find yourself in a bustling Georgian apothecary once again, but this time your attention turns to the peculiar world of dream interpretation. Dream books sit piled high on the counter, their pages yellowed and filled with elaborate illustrations, snakes signaling betrayal, flying representing freedom, and falling meaning impending misfortune. The connection between dreams and insomnia is a curious one. Fear of bad dreams often feeds the anxiety that keeps you awake, creating a cycle that's hard to break. You overhear an elderly woman explaining how she uses a dream catcher of sorts, not the Native American kind, but a simple bundle of herbs tied above her bed to ward off nightmares. Mugwort, wormwood, and valerian are popular choices, believed to protect the sleeper and ensure peaceful rest. You think about the role of folklore and superstition in shaping sleep practices, especially in rural areas where access to doctors was limited and the line between medicine and magic blurred. In the city, however, the Enlightenment's rationality begins to creep in. Physicians prescribe opiates cautiously, aware of their addictive potential but desperate to relieve suffering. You picture a worried apothecary carefully measuring laudanum drops for a nervous patient, knowing the fine line between remedy and poison. Historians still argue whether Georgian reliance on opium was a necessary evil or a precursor to modern addiction crises. You consider the role of exercise, or the lack of it, in sleep health. While today we understand that regular physical activity promotes good sleep, many Georgians led sedentary lives, especially among the upper classes. Long carriage rides replaced walking, and time indoors often meant hours spent in dimly lit rooms. You imagine the irony. The more comfortable life became, the harder it was to find restful sleep. You also recall tales of sleeping clubs, secret gatherings where insomniacs met to share remedies, stories, and sometimes a glass of nightcap. These clubs were both social and therapeutic, a place to find community in shared sleeplessness. The idea that insomnia could isolate you, but also bring people together, feels poignantly familiar. As you drift further into this world of dreams, medicines, and rituals, you sense the complicated dance between science, superstition, and society. Each night, the people of Georgian England continued their search for that elusive restorative sleep, hoping that tonight might finally be the night they dreamed without fear or interruption.